Well, hello everybody. Welcome to this most fabulous presentation. Tagged a lot of media, other special people involved in government at high levels. This presentation is for all Americans, all Canadians, American Indians, and absolutely First Peoples here in Canada, one and the same peoples. Before I get into it, and it's all on healthcare, I just want to read a disclaimer. And as I get into that, I just want to say it's about being first, it's about being bold, it's about being brave, and above all else, it's about being honest. Honesty is critical when we go through this. So, disclaimer. This presentation is in response to President Donald J. Trump's offer for someone to educate Canadians on the benefits of improved health care as the 51st State of the Union. President Trump is bound by his constitutional mandate and can't educate beyond his limits. It's up to us. I don't work for Donald J. Trump or the GOP, but if those powers that be wish to hire me in a capacity for Canada, the 51st State, I'm available for hire. Sponsor me for a green card, and I won't say no. I'm going to leave it at that, just right there. We got a number of slides to go through. This presentation is brutally honest. It's all of that healthcare that is Canada and the USA and what we could do together, making us much stronger. This does not go to the far left. This does not go to the far right, regardless of what people like to narrate. I know there's tons of fears on both sides of the aisles. I know there's tons of propaganda. We're going to go through all of it as it really is. And before I do that, and I jump behind the camera and we start going through my slides, I want everybody to understand something. Yes, USA has a $36 trillion deficit. The largest share and growing number of that deficit is no different than many other countries. And absolutely, it is healthcare. This presentation is bluntly honest as it really is. It does not favor parties, theatrics, or any of it. It is a presentation for the President of the United States, whom asked for it, as it really is, because a lot of it he can't do. His mandate as president, his constitutional defining role, won't allow him to do. So he says, somebody else do it, and that is what I'm going to do here today, like nobody has ever done before. Thank you, and we'll continue. And just on another note, everybody, I've got a cold. We had that Arctic blast here in Toronto. I'm pretty weakened and, of course, late hours, coffee, staying up, working all day. So I'm wearing a toque because I'm keeping my head warm and I'm trying to break a sinus infection. So I'm just going to blow this up now. So this is all about Donald J. Trump's two-tier health challenge. It's in response to not only 48 hours ago did he bring up the 51st state again, he also brought up that health care with the 51st state is imperative, and it's imperative for people to learn that. But again, he can't educate it, so I'm going to do that. And hopefully Americans and Canadians take a lot from this. It's free. This is real education you'll never get anywhere else. It's one of a kind. And then, like I like to say, we're stronger together. America and Canada. Canada, the 51st State of the Union. So, to begin with, what I always like to do, no matter any time in any of my political history, is the cost analysis, starting with taxpayers. So, folks, Healthcare, the most massive expense we have, whether you're Canadian or American. But how do they stack up? Well, in USA, it's a two-tier system. In Canada, it's a single-payer system. They are both public and private, both of them. There is a federal public cost, and then in Canada, there's a federal public cost. It's very important for everybody to know, whether you're American or Canadian. America's federal public cost per person is sizably higher than its per person cost on its counterpart Canada. The state portion that the 50 states individually pay is a minor portion back to that repatriation of the federal. Very, very small, almost 1/14. However, in Canada's public healthcare system, the provinces pay a lion's share of it here in Canada. A lion's share. We also have something that nobody likes to talk about. I'm just going to turn this a little bit, sorry. Is medical bankruptcies that can't be ignored. And again, this is a presentation only on healthcare. We're only looking at that major, this keeps shifting. We're only looking at healthcare and what those costs are. So in USA, there are most definitely massive medical bankruptcies in the United States. Last year, that totaled, on average per American, $8,564. A massive hammer blow to American taxpayers, as that largely flew onto your federal debt. A massive debt, in fact, healthcare ballooning you over your limits, your debt load limits. These are absolutely Canada, USA, public. These are costs of socialism, socialist costs. Make no mistake. In USA, that's a whopping $23,134 per person versus $9,054 in Canada per person. What are we talking about here? Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, ACA, better known as Obamacare, and on the Canadian side, this is Canada Universal Medicare. Just gonna check something here. Sorry, I just gotta do something here. No, okay. Hope that's accurate on my slide. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, no, it's all right. It still keeps shifting this way, and I don't know why. Let's hope it stays there. Okay, so taxpayers and public coverage breakdown. So in the United States of America, all Americans over 65 qualify for public health care. All American Indians codified qualify for public health care. American children up to 14 qualify for American public health care. Low income, disabled, and institutionalized all qualify for public American health care. When women are pregnant, they qualify for public health care. All government workers qualify for public health care in the United States. Veterans qualify, all of them, for public health care. How many Americans is this in the socialist side of health care? 55%. This is known as assigned equity of the person. Why is that? Because only 55% of Americans qualify, and it's assigned by the government, as I just listed to you. Which government? Federal government of the United States of America. Now we go over to Canada. All Canadians qualify for health care, public health care, all Canadians. Also, and this is a big one, All permanent residents in Canada qualify for our health care. All refugees qualify for our health care, and absolutely all illegals qualify for our health care. So the Canadian system is sitting at 121%, called assigned equality, because everybody, even non-Canadians, qualify for that care. So when we look at the United States, it's centralized, federal, it's a unitary system largely, meaning the public side doesn't have any room for negotiation. It's all levied by the federal centralized system, federal government. It's unitary. In Canada, it doesn't work like that. The federal government has very little to do with healthcare besides equalizing healthcare, meaning sending payments for regional health districts who don't have the same capacity to pay as some of the better designed provinces and health districts or better funded. The federal government will make transfers just to even it out. It's important to understand here right now, again, on the public system, USA versus Canada, USA's federal public system is 255% more expensive for less than half the amount of people under it. These are facts. These are realities. Now, what did we just watch? What did we just watch on January 20th? First of several, but the first day, what did Trump rescind? Well, he rescinded Executive Order 14,009 of January 28, 2021, which was strengthening Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, meaning putting more and more Americans on that system. We look at how much did that cost America. It cost America absolutely over $2.5 trillion extra averaged over those 4 years. Per year, $2.5 extra trillion. Did medical bankruptcies change in the United States? No, they continue to go up. How much of that $36 trillion last year was attributed to expanding healthcare and, of course, medical bankruptcies in the United States? Over $4.5 trillion since Donald J. Trump. On a federal system that covers less than 55% of the population. I got Donald Trump here. Stronger together, America plus Canada. Now, we're going to take a deep dive into the regional systems and where things have gone wrong here. So, as I just went through federal transfers in Canada, we have federal transfers, USA and Canada, one to the other. Federal transfers, centralization, public health care. So, this last year, total transfers and or bankruptcies, United States, $21,998 per every American in all 50 states under their public system. Go over to Canada. Do you know how much? And I mean, it's an average of 10 provinces. Canadians know this very well, that yes, many provinces pay more and don't get any of those transfers and others get much more. But the average for the 10 provinces by the federal, out of your federal tax dollars, $935 per person to the 10 provinces. Now, where does all the money come in the Canadian system? Well, it comes from 36% of provincial taxes. What do the 50 states pay into the public system? 5% of state taxes. Okay? Not much at all. Why is America struggling in their public system because they're centralized and unitary. Forever and a day, folks. See that map of the sea of blue with little portions of gray and black dots? 3 healthcare differing systems under one centralized unitary plan. Not good at all. Over in Canada, take a good look at that multicolored map. Notice how it transcends provinces, meaning some of these regional districts are all over Canada, broken up not by province, but by like populace, like peoples, in the like industries. It was created based on your differences, even geographical, even race, in the point of what diseases affect who. This is what Canada did, which is a model USA uses on almost every other level in the United States. If you looked at this from the perspective of any American science expert doctorate, they would tell you that, in fact, the centralized unitary system isn't American at all. And in fact, it's the Canadian 13 regional health districts that is absolutely what America should be, what almost every other area of the United States is. And later on, I'm going to do the education districts of the United States versus Canada, and you're going to see what I mean. You've already seen a very comprehensive district system of Canada with me before, of USA. But now we're looking at healthcare, and we're all of a sudden, what's wrong with USA? Well, this is what's wrong with USA. So at the bottom here, this is very important, and I know it's very small at the bottom. You can't see because they're writing, but like I said, this post is here. This is a map of Turtle Island all the way to Greenland. It shows all the First Peoples, all the way to Panama, all the way up to Greenland. This is a very old map generated by both Russia and the United States of America. UK and France have largely dissolved this stuff because of their colonialism. America and Russia never, ever erased this. It's an easy one to find. I call this critical knowledge. I give it in blue and red. Critical knowledge. It divides North America in half for the Canada, USA. So it's critical to know free healthcare for 6.5 million American Indians, not paid for by the 50 states. Paid for through federal taxes in a federal unitary system. They should turn off notifications. So over to the right, the 13 health districts, and then we go down. Free healthcare for 2.5 million First Nations, same people as American Indians, paid for largely this time by the 10 provinces. Those 13 districts paid for by exclusively, almost nearly, the 10 provinces, not federal government. So, this failure, a failure of the 50 states. So, I'm going to read this to you. American Constitution, 1791, the 10th Amendment. Who are we talking about? Founding Father Roger Sherman, and the 10th Amendment, the Health Care Act, federal power, and then the Commerce Act. It all originates from this founding father, and here is his amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That means health care, which is not written anywhere in the Constitution, does not belong to the federal government of the U.S. It never has, shouldn't be. This is a malfunction of the design of America. It's in fact unconstitutional, absolutely. So why does Canada work? Well, Canada has provincial powers too, just like the states. And in Section 92 of the Constitution, the federal Constitution, gives the provinces the powers to establish and maintain and manage health care. Provinces are responsible for the day-to-day administration of health care, including setting priorities, managing budgets, and regulating healthcare professionals. See how the powers of federal Congress are in fact not when it comes to healthcare. It goes to the provinces exclusively, which should be what the United States is, but it is not. Of course, the United States designed it first, and in 1791 there was no health care. Even all the way up to the Civil War, there was none. Same with Canada, but it was written in there. Of course, that's 1867, more than 100 years after USA gained independence and after USA wrote Articles of Confederation, and then, of course, their Constitution. And this is the difference. A lot can happen in over 100 years, right? People advance. But the Founding Fathers knew, Roger Sherman knew, and he said, listen, James Madison agreed that you have to reserve these things for the states because they can come up. And just because we didn't cover it today doesn't mean in the future it won't come along. Remember, it will be a state power. It will be the power of the states or of the people in those states. So we have the Health Care Act, the federal powers, the Commerce Clause. This is United States. So this is Canada the 51. Now, over on the left side, it's called Article 5 Amendment, or we have SCOTUS. So what is an Article 5 Amendment? Article 5 amendments are two procedures laid out in the Constitution to amend the Constitution if you wanted to write in healthcare and affect all 50 states absolutely. You can do that with a vote of 34 and then ascended by 38 states, which has never been done. It's very, very hard. Or Congress gets a majority of House and Senate, a clear majority over that 65% threshold, which means Republicans and Democrats. This is very, very hard to do. But there's another or, and it's called SCOTUS. This is the Supreme Court of the United States. And I call this Canada the 51st state versus the United States. Now, I'm just going to hold it here for a second to explain this. This is for Americans and Canadians. The Canada 51st state absolutely brings forward its public health care if they so wish to codify it. What you can't bring forward is your capacity to opt out of medical bankruptcy. So you can come into the Union of the 50 states, you can apply and say, we're going to run our own health care. No one can stop you, not Congress, not Senate, not the President, not nobody. SCOTUS won't challenge you. They're going to say, yeah, it's your power. The problem is, Canadians, you come with this massive savings. You supply everyone in your state with health care at a much cheaper rate on the public side. And here's the problem. You're still subject to your portion of all the medical bankruptcies coming out of the other 50 states, meaning this giant, ever-increasing debt of the federal government in the United States. So you want to amend that. You can't get Article 5 on either the legislative or at the state level to convince all the other states that you eat your own debt. We know about this in Canada. So you have to go with SCOTUS. This will work. It will be Canada the 51st state in the Supreme Court versus the United States of America. These have happened, by the way. And Canada can actually save the 50 states of America. I promise you that SCOTUS would rule literally 9-0. Doesn't matter about who is appointed from Republican or Democrat during presidential times, because I want to explain something about American law and the independent judiciary. There are justices that either are originalism, meaning they go strictly by what the Constitution says and what was written of the time and enforced today, versus interpretive, where these justices say, what would it mean today? Either way, Canada coming into the Union supplying a superior public health care at cost savings beyond anything in America, under the spirit of America and under the Constitution as it should be in America, SCOTUS will rule in that challenge. Doesn't matter, Democrat appointed or Republican appointed justice, originalist or interpretive. Right now it's 6-3. And people get this wrong. They say, oh, that's a Republican justice or that's a Democrat justice. No, it's called a justice that reads it as originalist or interpretive, generally speaking. And either way, originalist or interpretive, they will rule in Canada 51's favor, and we will not eat that debt. That's the absolute truth. That if the 50 states don't opt in, we're not going to eat that portion of the debt year after year. In fact, we'll be helping to lower the debt in the United States. Health debt, the number one source of debt to the federal government. So now we're into private. This is where everything changes. Everything changes. Again, we just did public as it really is. Now we're doing private insurance as it really is. These are the costs of it. Private insurance in USA is employer-employee largely. Now, this can be self-employed, and you can opt into these private programs, or you can be independently wealthy. You can opt into these programs. Over in Canada, private insurance is still single-payer province. The province pays the massive majority of it. It's minimum employer-employee contributions. This is where it's really important for Americans to understand that competitive edge goes to Canada's private insurance because only of our public system, which can transform American companies and make them more competitive to sell more products overseas. So it's important here as we go down, only 45% of Americans, that's it, that is their only option. This private insurance is their only option. There currently is no public availability for 45% of the Americans. No matter what they do not qualify for the federal programs. 70% of Americans have private insurance, this that we're going through. Now, again, over in the Canada column, 40% is provincially funded. So that amount over on the first pages in public, 40% of that goes towards this too. 60% of Canadians have private health insurance. So private insurance costs in the United States of America per average American, $67.10. Private insurance costs in Canada, $5,054. What is the state funding on that? $340. That's it on average. Provincial funding, a whopping $2,021. Employer-employee funding, well, as you all know, if you work for a living and you get into these options, some things are only 50-50. Some are 70-30, some are 80-20, some are 90-10, and then there's 100. Now, this is both. But right here, I circle them. These are critical to understand. In the United States, employer-employee funding of it is $4,697 versus $2,123 in Canada. It is more than half as cheap in Canada for employers, making them substantially more competitive in trading goods than Americans. I'm not saying what's right or wrong here. I'm just showing you how it is. And the more socialist countries, this is where it starts to become a problem for Canada, the US, and its cost. I'm not saying it's bad. We're going to get into the good things here. So don't everybody lose it here because you don't like how things are going. We're being honest. We're not holding punches. So at the end of the day, it's the American employee who's left with $1,673 on average per person they're left with a year that they have to pay out of pocket. And again, this is employed American. Over on the other column, Canadian, it is much, much less, $910 employed Canadians. Sizable difference there. So we have private insurance costs. We're going to break things down. In America, under the private, they switch from equity to assigned equality of the person, meaning all Americans who work have equality. In Canada, that's not how it works. It's assigned equity, meaning no matter how much you make, there's only a limit to what health services you're going to get. And that's when we look at it. 50% of Americans, more health services are offered. On the Canadian side, it's limited. 95% of this private healthcare is limited to dental and pharma related. So, alternatives available. There's choices in care in the United States private care system. In Canada, there's not a whole lot of choices. And you're also not allowed to queue jump. No matter if you're a working person and you need that for your family, you will wait in line with everyone else. It's one size fits all. Over on the American side, that nobody really likes to talk about, which makes America so much better, at least in its private side. Subject to the judiciary, meaning you go out, you get health, and there's an accident or something happens, they're liable to the judiciary. They can be held legally responsible for errors and things that happen to you or your children. In Canada, that's Crown immunity. Doctors cannot be held liable. The Crown protects them. They can never be held liable. Employee costs. Here we are. $1,687,910. This is subject to, in the United States, an individual deductible on average of $1,500. Every American, every year, regardless of their federal tax dollars to health care in the public system, regardless of employee benefits or not, they're going to be deducted a deductible of $1,500. That's coming out of their pocket. In Canada, the most on average you're going to see is $208. Now we got to break that down further. Health services, $187, unattainable. That means out of that massive amount, $187 is all that's unattainable for Americans, meaning there are services working Americans could have, but they're unattainable at that rate, meaning a much less rate. In Canada, that number is drastically higher. Many services available to Americans are not going to be ever attainable by any Canadian, no matter how good their job, no matter how hard they work. So, breaking it down further, 73% of health services are not available to employed Canadians, and 11% of health services are not available to employed Americans. Right there, that's substantial. People talk about money. Not everything's money. And this system, it's 70% funded in America by employers, not the employee. Whereas in Canada, our provincial taxes are covering a giant swath of it, and we still don't have the same medical coverage an American has the opportunity to have. These are facts, whether people like it or not, and they make a difference when your family needs you to work, but you're waiting on a critical surgery that is keeping you from working because you're on a long waiting list. That's not going to happen in America if you have coverage. So private insurance in the 51st state, this is federal Congress imposed. It's called the Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, two-way interstate, and this is important for all Canadians and Americans to understand. And we are talking about Canada gets in as the 51st state. How is that going to positively affect America? Canada, the 51st state, will not be able to restrict private insurers from the state. So I'm just going to hold it there for a sec. So Canadians, you're going to get all those private options. So are all your employers. You're going to start seeing that as a 51st state. Now, there's a part two to this. Just as Canada, the 51st state, district single-payer system will not be restricted from the 50 states. You will watch this grow. You will watch Canada grow. Contrary to all the socialists, the two-tier with the Canada single-payer system district will grow. And I'll tell you why. Employers will lobby for the Canada Regional Health District system. I just showed you how much an employer saves. Do you think, dollar for dollar, we switch over when an employer or a company in Canada does not have the deductions that all those American employers have? Do you not see that all of a sudden American companies are like, I like the idea of saving double down, and the province, the people of, not province, they'll be gone, but of the districts are paying that portion, not me, the employer. Nobody likes to talk about this, but that's the truth of it. It's called the Spirit of Competitive Advantage America. It's macro, micro economics at the state level. You'll never hear about this stuff. I'm probably the only one who's ever shown you this. So, healthcare, citizen versus subject, we got to get into accountability. There are lots and lots of myths. Lots. A citizen, not a subject. You see there's the American free fighting for their individual sovereignty. There's the subject in allegiance giving their sovereignty away. That's Canada. Sorry, folks. That's your constitution. So in the United States, big differences. There is medical choice in the United States of America, and there most certainly is medical freedom. Folks don't get this at all in Canada. They don't. Largely they don't. You choose your choice, but you also have medical freedom to do whatever you want. Nobody tells you, the individual, what to do. Now in Canada, there's only Crown choice. The Crown imposes the choices on you. This is largely private and public shared. The Crown also imposes on you. There is no medical freedom. You will all adopt this or else. That's how Canada works. Now, in real truth here, without holding back any lies, America's got problems too, and 51st state can rectify those. How many Americans truly have medical choice and medical freedom? 45% of Americans, no choice on health debts. That means they have medical choice, medical freedom, but they don't have a choice. They eat the health debts, meaning all the bankruptcies. They have to eat them. Under this column, there are Canadians. It's less than 5% of Canadians fall into medical choice and medical freedom. That's a fact. They will pay out of pockets. 5%, less than 5%. This is the wealthiest of the wealthy in Canada. Now, over in the Crown chooses and the Crown imposes, you ready for this? 11.5% of federal, state, or local government employees and veterans. Look at that. Have no choice because it's imposed and the government chooses what they get. That's how it works. That's 11.5% of federal, state, or local government employees and absolutely veterans. This is also 95% of Canada. Now, let's look at this. What's constitutional in the United States of America? Medical choice and medical freedom is constitutional in America. What's unconstitutional? That federal, state, or local government employees and veterans. Unconstitutional. So is the 95% of Canadians who are in the public system. It's subjugation. These are facts, folks. Healthcare, citizen versus subject. I underline accountability. I do a case study here. It's called Diastasis Recti. And our case study is on Terry Kohlerberg. And what had happened, it doesn't matter whether you were in the United States of America under a public or private, if you were in Canada under the public or private, or even Mexico public or private. Males in all three countries, you'll find this actually in many, many countries, do not get covered for diastasis recti. And that is when you have enlarged your stomach so much that you've torn the muscle lining walls and your muscles have actually ruptured apart because you've literally bursted. You will find extreme weightlifters. This is in the mega lifts. This happens to them. You'll find that supremely obese people, this happens to them. And it's all about personal accountability. Exercise and diet are not covered by public or private in USA or Canada, meaning if you are extremely obese, and there's lots of areas like this, if you have gotten into drugs or you're drinking excessively to the point of alcoholism, you wreck your body, you wreck your organs, not any public or private, USA or Canada, will fund you. The costs are entirely placed on you. It's called citizen or subject accountability. The Crown imposes this accountability. USA, it's freedom of choice, freedom to do what you want, but you will be responsible, you will be accountable as a citizen, and for that you will pay out of pocket. So I'm sorry, folks, it doesn't matter where you go and what system, there are load limits. Even in socialism or viable social programs, there are load limits. The cost personal in USA for this procedure that, again, is not covered publicly or privately, weighs in at 5,000 USD, all the way upwards of 19,000 USD. The cost in Canada is 10,000 to 18,500 CAD. Again, a special note, not covered in public or private Mexico. It's out of pocket. Cost starting at 50,000 pesos Mexican. Obviously, going out of the country where your dollar goes further. If you can't be responsible or accountable in your system and you can't get coverage, you're going to have to do that. Sorry, but that's the way it is. Women are largely covered over a diameter, but they can lose the weight. It happens to women a lot. Women do get covered, but males not. Not from abuse, not from consumption of drugs or consumption of food, because either or they can test for steroidal use for weightlifters, or they can test people for other drug consumption or just their obesity. Especially if they've been monitoring you for many decades, you will be shunned to the side. What they do is they tell you, we can't help you, but we can send you to a dietitian. They can get your weight under control. Once that, you can learn to do exercises and you can actually close it and heal it up all on your own. Now, there is a limit you hit, and then emergency rooms will take you. And if you can't pay in the United States, once that hole is opened up so far, they will have to take you because it's emergency. And then if you can't pay, it goes to bankruptcy. In Canada, they'll take you only at the emergent spot. Otherwise, it's out of pocket. All three countries. And there are many, many things like this. Alcoholics and liver. If you're an explosive alcoholic, they will not give you a liver. You will be jumped. You can't even buy your liver. No public or private will sponsor you. Same with drugs and many other procedures. You won't be covered if you're still using or if you're in a situation where you can self-correct. Not public, not private. It's important for people to know this. Now, healthcare review. I want to go through this, and then we're going to do a Q&A. People will have to hit it. So, number one, the Founding Fathers all went broke, everybody. Largely, most of the Founding Fathers went broke. They gave everything of themselves in the face of everything, just like this review and the truth. It's not about money, it's about knowledge, it's power. It's about strengthening the people. That's what the Founding Fathers did. And no, they didn't write in healthcare, but they didn't write in a lot of things that go to the states. That's why the 50 states have mighty constitutions, much, much longer than anything found at the federal level, because they have way more powers. So, folks, healthcare must be brought back to the state level. 51st state can do that. We already went through that. Socialism versus viable social programs. Who's under socialism? Absolutely the most extreme case of socialism is USA's public health care when compared to Canada. It falls under an extreme socialism. Sorry, Americans, that's the truth. You need to curb this. Your debt says everything. It shows the whole world. And we know how much health costs. Everybody does. Now, on socialism, at the opposite, we have Canada's private system. Absolutely socialist and restrictive and controlled. Now, under viable social program measuring stick, yes, the public decentralized regional system in Canada clearly surpasses that of the federal public counterpart, USA. It is socialist, but it falls under viable social programs everybody can contribute to. Under this program, yes, the mighty private system of USA falls into a viable social program everybody working can contribute to, along with their upgrade into the regional public health universal Canada. Okay? 3, U.S. judiciary and debt, equality versus equity. U.S. judiciary will rule in favor of a public Canada transition with the private America. That is constitutional. It will also remove all the federal debt assigned from healthcare bankruptcies. How can you say no? The number one cost to America federal debt loading, not found in Canada and many other countries. It's time to face facts. Public Healthcare USA has got to go. The federal government, centralized, messed that up. It's time to move to equality of all Americans, not equity of Americans, which again is unconstitutional in every single state constitution. Near 48 out of 50 of them specifically tell you this, codified in the state constitutions. They all have it, all 50 have it, but I mean by the words. You cannot assign equity to the people of this state by words and in the state level constitutions. I promise you those exact words are near word for word in California and New York. Oh yeah. Number 4, legislative branch commerce. This is huge and it's right for Canadians. This is where we have to move to. People don't want to face the fact that We can move the Canadian system right across America, affect it like other state systems affect other states. That can be done through that act. Yes, we can get in that viable social program, Private America, but again, to hammer it home, Public Canada can spread throughout the United States very easily, and I think lobby and employers are going to take advantage of that. I think you can even make money on that. Actually, someone selling that, I think that will turn into a real money maker, especially in lobby. People always ask me, how do we make money on this? Well, that is one of them. Right to try and freedom to choose. That's what becoming the 51st state on the healthcare file is. You get the right to try or the freedom to choose not to. That's your prerogative. You don't get to tell everybody else what they want to do. You don't get to restrict medical choices from people. You don't. Otherwise, you're not American. And there are a lot of loonies here. And we can get into left and right on different narratives where one's saying, yeah, I have a right to try, and the other one's trying to restrict them because they say, no, it's freedom to choose, and I say no, so you have to say no. Or somebody wants to try, but the other doesn't. You're going to force on, so you have to take this. Well, that's why you just got to respect individual choice. That's America. That will be the 51st state of Canada. So you take the responsibility, which brings us into 6. Individual accountability and responsibility. No one's going to wipe your bum for you. You smoke 25 cigarettes a day, you drink 2 6 of alcohol every day, or you jump into the drugs, you're going to die. You're not going to get covered if you're not employed. The system will only do so much for you. There will be restrictions on that. Public only takes you so far. You're going to have to eat your consequences. That's America. And it's imposed by Canada limitedly. And I want to say something about that. The government isn't responsible and accountable in Canada. And leaders will choose across provinces which freedom to choose or which right to try they'll impose according to them, not what the people want or don't want. The Crown imposes it in Canada. This is why the 51st state would benefit all Canadians, is that you actually get individual accountability, responsibility through the right to try or freedom to choose. I want to do some myth busts now. These are big ones. USA will become a socialist country and an overtaxed nation, right? Through Canada's public system. I don't think so. It's way less taxes, way less debt. Number for number. Numbers don't lie. Americans are going down the toilet. And just because you're not taxed today, you're taking on massive debt. That's deferred taxation and devaluation. Public Canada, putting at the state level where we can't trust individual accountability and responsibility, that Canadian public minimum level that everybody can contribute to allows for all the bad actors to go away. It removes all your debt, and in fact, at the state level, doesn't cost very much more at all. It's certainly way less than the federal cost, which means your federal taxes go down, and it goes down 3 to 1, meaning every 1% you increase your state tax, which on average in Canada, that provincial tax is 3.6%. versus your 0.5% right now, Americans. But yet on the state level, it's a lion's share of your federal taxation. And you know on your taxes, anyone who works for a living in the United States, that federal taxation is the monster. No different than Canada. Ours are higher, but ours aren't blowing money on healthcare. They're blowing it all over the world and on themselves. But we're talking about healthcare here, which is the giant lion's share at the federal level. That doesn't exist in Canada. They're still taken, but you lose that over massive chunk of federal taxation, far outpacing the state level, meaning those increases up to that 3.6% additional state taxes, you'll save 3 times that in federal taxation. That is money back in every American's pocket. And anyways, it wouldn't matter, and I'm not saying Americans have to do this or weigh this out today. Like I said, you're going to see the reality if Canada becomes a 51st state, that that's going to work for Canada. And you will see that if states don't comply and they want to resist, no problem, the SCOTUS challenge will happen. Because I know that the 51st state, Canada, with its public system that's far superior, isn't going to want to share your debt. Subjects have been abused this way. Those seeking the American freedom are not going to want to jump into another supersized socialist program. We have enough of that equalization and these kind of frauds against us, the subjects. We're tired of it. And I think a lot of Canadians will want to see that and fight that, just so Americans know whether they agree or not, but you will see it. So, yeah, that was the Tax Nation. Canada's health system will collapse because all doctors will leave it for the private money. Wrong. This is a huge socialist lie. A huge socialist lie, folks. Major lie. Because when we combined, where I show you that public Canada, private America, folks, doctors are going to be able to bill for any private extras to all the working folks. Class, yes, wealthier. Not only are they going to have that public minimum they have right now, they're going to get all that extra tier, 2-tier, to bill, just like when you go to the dentist or just in Canada, right? That's going to be available medical. And like, hey, listen, you go see your Canadian doctor, he's going to be able to say this. Well, I can put you through the public program here in the region. It's going to be 12 to 16 months before anyone sees you. Or I can hook you up this way. Here's my fee. Apply it through, put it through your employer. Yep, they're going to cover 70. You have to come up with the deductible, another $1,400. It'll be done in 30 days. If you're a working person, you got kids, you might say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to pay that money in the American private system now. I'll do that. So doctors are collecting the extra. Is it for everybody? No, you got to work. But you'll see a higher workforce. You'll see people motivated to work because they'll see that it comes with enhanced health services and much, much more. Much, much more things that aren't covered. Canadians just can't see this truth that's evident for every American. Number 3 is a big one. The poor and disabled will have no health care. I'm sorry, folks, but absolutely, what did I just show you on first page? USA spends more than Canada by leaps and bounds for the poor, the disabled, the institutionalized, and all the other handicaps that come with it. Much, much more than Canada covers at much, much more of a rate. You'll find that no matter what social programs beyond healthcare I go through, you're going to find USA continues to outperform Canada over and over. This is a massive presentation. This is probably the only one where America really falls down, is really broken. It's important for people to see it, and they need to see it. So I'm glad everybody stuck around. I'm going to turn the camera around. We're going to go through question and answer, and I'm going to take those. Thank you. I'm starting to get the frog in my throat rail here pretty good, but we'll go for a little bit. I promise 30 minutes. We'll do that, and I'll go through it. Oh, lots of comments. Bring them on camera. Let's watch. And then every time somebody says something, it scrolls back up. It's hard to do this. Sheet, I may not get to it. Okay, Mr. T is destroying 3D and ushering in 5G. Buckle up. Destroying 3D and ushering in 5D. Buckle up. I think you're talking about 3G, 4G, and 5G. Folks, the world's going forward. A lot of people are afraid of technology AI and change. There was a time of horse and buggy. There's a time now of going out to space. We've been in that in decades. Communication's going to change. Energy is going to change. A lot of things are going to change. This is about healthcare. Questions on healthcare. I can go into other things, but it takes away from the video we're doing now. I don't subscribe to fears. Alberta in the House, 50 states. Where do I sign up? Yeah, we'll get you, Linda. Okay, Helen says this could be a step in globalization, one world government. Okay, this again too. These are the people that it's not. You're already in globalism. If you're a Canadian, I'm going to say this right now. If you're a Canadian, wake up. You are already the globalist. Your country is number one leader in globalism. You're in the Commonwealth of 54 nations and you have no sovereignty. Not at your federal level, not at your provincial level. You never had. Not since 1867. You are a globalist. You were born and raised to be the slave to the globalists. And everything about your country is globalist. My country too. I was institutionalized into it now. Nothing like the United States. The United States doesn't beat to the globalist drums. They beat to their own. And they reset themselves. Doesn't matter governments, they never win. They never change the Constitution. They can't change the laws in a meaningful way to see impact. They need all kinds of checks and balances met. And right now, Donald J. Trump makes those checks and balances, and he's going to get a lot of this done. That's why it's critical. When you have majority House, Senate, plus presidency, there's a lot you can do that can never be undone. Some of it takes many, many decades to even revisit. Can't be undone. Not in those supermajorities that hardly ever happen because of the checks and balances. Checks and balances that do not exist in the Canadian Crown system that is globalism. You are the globalists. You work for them. I work for them. Not my fault. I was born Canadian, but realize that. Again, let's have some questions, please. On the topic at hand, healthcare. Yeah, it just keeps scrolling back down every time I stop. Oh. Yeah, thank you. People saying thanks. School stuff in USA. RFK is in charge of health, not education. Sorry, folks, but gotta pay attention. I see big changes coming from Mr. T, who will take down Big Pharma, starting with cancer. They have a cure for cancer. Like I said, lots of propaganda that people bite into. I've had so many family and friends die of cancer. I've had people of wealth in my family, big business, and they've been all over the world looking for the cure to cancer. Even a good friend, I've just lost a good friend to cancer, believed all that stuff, had the money, went around, and it didn't save him. Sorry, folks. If it was out there, these guys with money would have had it. I'm just saying, we would all love to see it, but people say, the art of technology has been suppressed from us, now it's just power to bring it, blow. In your research, have you found destroyed U.S. healthcare and driven up cost? Big government, yes, big government intervention did destroy healthcare and up the costs, absolutely, and the tremendous deficits in the United States. Canada, I should have hit this. It's the fact that we don't cover just Canadians anymore. We've had massive immigration, massive refugees, and massive illegals. Massive. 21% of our healthcare costs go to illegals, refugees, all of that, all part of globalization. This is killing Canada. Our costs used to even be lower just a few years ago. A decade ago, we were tremendously under the United States. We were a jewel beacon where everyone had their service. Now along lines, if you even have a doctor, because we're at 121% of our capacity. Why? because it's free health care for everybody. People who don't even contribute. The weight placed on the provinces is breaking their back. It's breaking their back. The system is very strong. It's an American style design, but it can't take it. And yes, for America, big government has done them in. It was never their power to begin with. That public centralized system in USA, in equity, assigning which Americans get it and which don't. All federal employees, veterans. I can understand American Indians. You have to honor that. That's the deal you made. I can understand others, but like handicapped and all that, but the reality and disabled, but to put those others on and kick everybody else off and then make them pay and then debt load them in service of, but not provide the benefits at anywhere near comparable rate. That's pigs at the trough. That's the worst healthcare steal in socialism. And why? Because it's not American. It's unconstitutional. It shouldn't be. And that's why I do this presentation. I give Donald J. Trump and the GOP a way out, a viable way out. It saves literally Americans. You can knock down $4.5 trillion off of your annual debt loading, because that's what you went up here in the last round. We can knock it down like that without cutting anything but changing your system. Lowering federal taxes and raising the bar on the states, putting in the regional system that actually works. Just like all American district regional systems work better than anything else in Canada and many other countries in the world, makes you strong. So why would it work for your judiciary? Why would it work for all these other avenues of American life, surpassing all other nations in the world? But yet you fall on your face in healthcare because you abandon that which you are, not what your Constitution tells you to be. And again, it's not anyone's fault. The Founding Fathers didn't roll it out. States never got around to it, and then I don't know why Canada did. There's talk of Switzerland, which codified a constitution after the United States in the likeness of the United States. Canada took a Swiss guy. They developed all that out in the 60s, just not very long ago. America needs to do the same now. It's time. 51st state can do that. Like crazy, it's absolutely jobs related to education public. Yeah, I'm not going to go into education because it's not... Oh, prescription drug cost. Ian asks about prescription drug costs. Yeah, they go way down in the Canadian system because of that provincial and regional funding. Building the drug system to appreciate the geography, the people's needs, the ethnicity, which diseases are prevalent where. Whereas in the States, the federal central just puts by the numbers a blanket instead of recognizing the differences in regions. Like my cold, folks, right? We saw the Arctic blast and we've seen joke videos. We saw that American, I always get a kick out of him. He's like, oh, geez, I gotta go out, I gotta measure the snow. It's terrible. And he's got like just two snowflakes on the ground. And it's a funny video, but geographical differences. They're not going to get that cold weather. They're not going to have the same diseases of us. So you put those geographies together along with other maps, even in ethnicity and culture-related genetic diseases, and where they are and which regions. You group everybody together on that, and then you can pay in a district system and set up stuff like pharma caring for that, right? You know where those drugs are going to be demanded, not just everybody produce, bring it here, and half the warehouses over here don't get used because it's like communism. This is the United States. And this is a failure epically at the federal level. Where they're like, we got lots of reserves of this. You saw it in COVID, and I don't want to go down any rabbit holes, but I just want to say ventilators and other things where certain regions had super surpluses where, what the hell you got all those there for? They've never experienced any of those problems, but yet they had tens and hundreds of thousands of certain items that were required in other geographical areas because the weather's particular to that, but they had none. And this is what the problem is with a federal centralized system, like communism. That's how bad the United States is in public health care. Why? Because it's not American. Someone sometime long ago said, hey, we're going to usurp this, we're going to take it. And they were trying to help, but it's un-American. And now we need an American model that works, that looks like America, because it actually is American. You bring that in under the 51st state, and it's dramatically going to change America. It's dramatically going to lower the debt and deficits every year of the American system. And you're going to watch the federal go just in healthcare off the 51st state Canada model. Crazy. And of course, all the other that comes with it, with the private that will enhance Canada. Canada's weakness. It'll be something to see when we get there. I hope I got that. Oh, in your research, have you found how big? Oh, yeah, I did that. Oh, shoot. I hate it when it does that. It's very hard because it scrolls on me. Oh, about how this will affect Canadian currency. If you're talking about healthcare, how it affects currency, well, absolutely. The costs of healthcare in USA going down so drastically, the bankruptcies, that will bolster the American dollar's strength. Absolutely. If you can cut that debt load from health bankruptcies in the United States and cut the federal expense without reducing services, in fact, expanding it to all Americans, strengthening employers, and then they're focused on R&D, product design and research, not healthcare for employees. I'm not saying it's wrong. We still want that. But you would reduce their over-need, their over-investment on it, which would in fact increase U.S. production, increase U.S. GDP, and absolutely increase the strength of the U.S. dollar. Absolutely. Thanks for that. That's a good question. Auto insurance. Yeah, you know what? Over time, if all the 50 states got in bed with this, and I think with Canada 51, after a few years, you'd see employers, this would be the Canadian economy growing, and everyone, if they don't look at healthcare because it would be so much cheaper, companies operating at a much cheaper rate, even with higher wages in USD. Other companies go, hey, that's what I was saying about the lobby, and this in turn will lower insurance, auto insurance, because now it's not people getting sued so much, because if you have that regional system that covers so much more in the emergent situation that's not covered in America, and I urge Americans to look at Canada's emergency model. You get smucked by a car, you get shot, you get stabbed, you fall off a cliff. That scenario, Canada is terrific. It's the other issues Canada falls down the scale, way down. And of course, what is that in relation to? That private care model, that two-tier that you, America, bring to our table that can enhance all of that which we need. But yes, auto insurance under regional health over USA would drastically lower the rates because of lawsuits. Now, people say you can't sue in Canada on medical grounds, but you can sue an auto. But imagine you all of a sudden have this Canadian public covered, and then all of a sudden hospital care costs aren't passed over to auto insurance anymore. They're not part of lawsuits, because in Canada they're not. They are not. Unless you miss work, sure they are. Or you can't work in your recovery, you can claim that, but not the actual medical bills because they don't exist in our system. They don't. Oh, I see 2 new comments. Let's see. Here's one solution for America's healthcare problem. Look. I can't look at it. Healthcare is so expensive and how to fix it. Not sure because I can't open that while I'm doing the video. Teres Kolibaba was diagnosed and had surgery in 3 days in Cancun, Mexico, going home next Sunday. Yeah, exactly. If you're paying for it out of pocket, you wouldn't get any private or public insurance medical coverage in Mexico. It would be out of your pocket. And a lot of American Canadians do that. Just had a friend come back from Cuba because the dollar exchange is so huge. They'd rather go to the cost of dollar transfer and get it done somewhere else. But a lot of surgeries cost tremendously more in Canada and the United States. Especially convert to USD, it's going to cost you a lot. So a lot of people don't do it, or they go without. Both systems. There's a number of things not covered in the Canadian system you got to pay out of pocket for. Some health private will cover some things, other things not. You got to read the fine print. Just like America, that can be troublesome too in the United States if you don't watch the plan you're in, or you've underestimated, or you didn't buy the extra insurance. The other thing is unemployment in the States. Another reason why the Canadian public is better. You're covered for a lot of things you're not covered in America. Like I said, 45% of Americans are not covered at all. 55 get all of that, plus the additional private. They're the ones laughing, but largely working everyday Canadians, American families don't get any of that. So if they're not working, if the parents aren't working, they fall under hard times, unemployment. It's all out of pocket. They're not covered. Yeah, Courtney says Canadians cling to a farce. Our healthcare system is free, however they die waiting for care. Would usher in actual healthcare and grant you access to testing, diagnosis, doctors. Yeah, there's a whole bunch. That's what I mean. But that's in the private. If you look at Federal Public USA, it's a disaster. It's about taking the best of two scenarios who are both public and private. It's just USA is vastly superior in private, and there's no distinguishing that Canada is vastly superior in public. It's nice to have a public that everyone can contribute to, smaller contribution that's always there for you. And if it wasn't true, we wouldn't see so many Americans going health bankrupt in the United States. It's true, there are none in Canada. There's a lot of other bankruptcies in Canada, a lot of other systems we can look at where Canada is down in the dumps. I'm the first to tell you that. But I'm looking at healthcare, and it's public Canada, private America, together, two-tier. That's what Donald J. Trump wanted to see. That's what I present, and that's what people got to look at and distinguish. You got to learn it, because it very well could be in the next 2 years. I sure hope it is. Terry Gehring says, how about buying meds? Yeah, the medical situation won't change in Canada, the 51st state. It's not going to change. Your generic drug system is highly sought after in the USA. I mean, it's going down the toilet right now with tariffs. It's going to destroy Quebec and what they've established. But going forward in the 51st state model, I bet you Quebec would triple their health system and how they do it just because of regional. And in fact, other regions who never got into it before in Canada, in this new American open market with free access, no restrictions, you're going to see almost every former province in the 51st state under the districts, because it's not in America. They're a unitary federal system going, oh, geez, I don't know. And then you see the American companies, but I promise you they can't compete with your district model. Many Canadians will have, at least for some time, maybe a decade, a huge amount of growth in so many fields. It's, I mean, this is big money here, and it's not bad money either, especially on the corporate level and lobbying. A lot of people could make a lot of money on something Americans don't have that's superior, and they love that. I can attest to this. Americans love intellectual property and superior mechanisms, superior invention, or superior systems. They suck it up like a straw. like the whole drink, they'll take it in fast. You can make money, provinces will. Quebec will do extremely well, obviously. They already are, but we'll see with tariffs. Jonathan says, what about coverage for First Nations status called in the new system? Not going to change. That's why I was going through it. It won't change at all. In fact, you're going to get funded either way. You'll just have better choices, just like Canadians. First Peoples won't change at all, except for have much more choice. Much more choice. And you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay. That's the federal government's responsibility. They're always going to eat that. Just like in Canada, too, when we look at those transfers, a lot of that has to do with First Nations and the Indian Act. USA has 4 other acts, but USA still honors that, still pays all of it, and the private insurance, too, for all First Peoples that they don't necessarily have today. I know with dental and others they do, but you will for sure get more choice. Same coverage, more choice. Thank you. Ian says, do you have any knowledge about diabetes care, Canada versus USA? Yeah, USA, it's tremendously more money depending on your type of diabetes and your age. So children under 14, and then of course people over 65. There's a giant middle ground that if you're not a government employee, you're not a veteran, you're not otherwise disabled, you're paying out of pocket in the United States if you're not employed. If you're employed, you're going to get percentages, but you're going to pay more than the Canadian model in our public system. That's a fact. Good question. What's this, Courtney? Canadians clean first. I think I got it all. If there's not any more questions, I'm going to shut the video down and ask you all to share. It's credible, real, verifiable. I always take learning lessons. If there is a mistake from the American side, please hit me with it. But otherwise, this is the most comprehensive and detailed study ever done. 51st state happened under a referendum, only at the point of after the acts, the enabling acts of the U.S. Congress. If you've applied for statehood, the only referendum Canadians will ever see is the referendum on completing their state constitution. Otherwise, no referendums. That's a myth. Thanks for the questions. Oh. Yeah. Thanks, Courtney. That was good. Okay, guys. That's it. I'm going to go for my night. I'm going to have a good snooze. One more round of Neocitrin, and then I'm going to sleep. I know. Share. Get it out there. Super critical.